You know, not long ago I was chatting with a friend at our community center. Jim, 74 years old, retired teacher, sharp as a tack. But he shared something that really stayed with me. A few months back, he had a minor stroke. Nothing too severe, thank goodness, but it shook him. He said, "I thought I was doing everything right. I walk every morning, I watch my salt, but still, boom, out of nowhere." And I could see it in his eyes. That fear, that sudden realization that your health can turn on a dime, even when you think you're doing okay. It reminded me just how sneaky strokes can be. Especially as we get older, our bodies just don't bounce back the way they used to. But here's the hopeful part. There are simple, everyday choices that can make a big difference. No pills, no extreme diets, just food. The right kind of fresh, delicious food. Today, we're going to talk about 3 fresh foods, nothing fancy, things you can find at any grocery store, that have been shown to help protect your brain and your blood vessels as you age. These aren't miracle cures, but they are backed by science and can fit right into the meals you already love. If that sounds helpful, do me a little favor. Tap that like button and subscribe to Vibrant Elders so you don't miss our weekly wisdom. And hey, if you've had a brush with stroke or someone close to you has, share your story in the comments. You never know who it might help. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the sneaky reason strokes become more common as we get older. So, what exactly is a stroke? And why does it become more of a threat after we hit our 60s? Well, the simplest way I can put it is this. A stroke happens when blood can't get to a part of your brain. Imagine your brain is like a little town, and blood is the delivery truck bringing oxygen and nutrients. If that truck gets blocked or breaks down on the way, say, from a clot or a narrowed artery, then the town doesn't get what it needs. That's when damage starts. Now, here's where aging comes in. Over time, just like old plumbing, our arteries can stiffen up or get clogged with plaque. Things like high blood pressure, diabetes, or even just years of not-so-great eating can slowly build up until, bam, something gets stuck. And suddenly, your brain is in trouble. But here's the good news. What we eat can actually help keep those arteries clean and the blood flowing smooth. Certain fresh foods contain natural compounds, vitamins, minerals, even antioxidants, that act like tiny helpers, keeping your blood vessels flexible and fighting off the gunk that causes blockages. That's what today's really about. Not fear, but power. Because with the right foods in your fridge, you're not just feeding yourself, you're protecting yourself. And the first one we're diving into? It might just be sitting in your crisper drawer right now. Ready to talk greens? Let's go. Number 1, leafy greens. If you're anything like me, you probably didn't grow up dreaming about eating spinach. I remember as a kid, I'd push those mushy greens around on my plate, hoping mom wouldn't notice. But oh, how things change. These days, I look at leafy greens like spinach, kale, and even good old-fashioned collard greens with a whole new appreciation. Because it turns out, they're not just rabbit food. They're heart and brain defenders, especially for folks like us, past our 60s, trying to keep our health in check without going to extremes. Now let me tell you why leafy greens are so powerful when it comes to stroke prevention. The secret lies in what they're packed with. First up, potassium, a mineral that helps relax blood vessels and keeps your blood pressure in a healthy range. You've probably heard your doctor mention blood pressure more times than you can count. That's because it's one of the top risk factors for stroke. When your pressure's high, it's like a fire hose blasting through a garden hose. Eventually, something's going to burst or get blocked. But potassium works like a calming agent. It eases that pressure, giving your arteries a break. And leafy greens are some of the richest sources around. Spinach, for example, has more potassium per serving than a banana, and without all the sugar. Then there's folate, a B vitamin that helps regulate something called homocysteine. Don't worry about pronouncing it, just know this. High levels of it have been linked to greater stroke risk. Folate helps keep those levels in check. Again, where do we find folate? You guessed it, leafy greens. Vitamin K is another big player. It helps with blood clotting, yes, but more importantly, it keeps calcium from building up in your arteries. Think of it as a traffic cop, keeping things flowing instead of letting your blood vessels get stiff and narrow. But I know what you might be thinking. Okay, I get it, greens are good, but how do I actually eat them without feeling like I'm chewing grass? I hear you. The trick is not to force yourself into bland salads every day. That's no fun. Instead, find ways to slip them into meals you already enjoy. For me, Breakfast has become a leafy green goldmine. I toss a handful of spinach into my scrambled eggs with a little garlic and olive oil. Takes maybe 2 extra minutes, but it feels like I'm feeding my brain a healthy boost first thing in the morning. Lunch is another easy win. A wrap with turkey, cheese, and baby kale? Done. Or I'll heat up some soup and stir in some chopped chard right before serving. It wilts down and blends in beautifully. And dinner? One of my favorites is sautéed collard greens with a touch of onion and a splash of apple cider vinegar. That southern-style bite, but still light and healthy. You can also roast kale into crispy chips. A little olive oil, salt, and a hot oven turns them into a crunchy snack that actually feels like a treat. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just consistent. A few handfuls here and there, and you're giving your body something it can truly use to fight off stroke risk. Now, for the skeptics out there, this isn't just old wives' wisdom. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, right here in the US, published studies showing that people who eat more leafy greens have a significantly lower risk of stroke. We're not talking about magic. We're talking about science-backed, real food doing real work in your body. And the best part? These greens are easy to find. Whether it's your local farmer's market, a big box grocery store, or even frozen in a bag, you've got options. And they're affordable. You don't need a $10 smoothie or an expensive supplement. You just need to say yes to the produce aisle a little more often. So the next time you're thinking about what to cook or standing in front of your fridge wondering what's for dinner, remember this. Leafy greens are more than just side dishes. They're protection, they're prevention, and they're a delicious, everyday way to take control of your health, one bite at a time. Number 2, berries. If there's one thing I've learned about eating healthy, it's that it doesn't have to feel like a chore. Sometimes the sweetest things in life, literally, can also be the most protective. That's why I'm so excited to talk about berries. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, they're like little gems of nature. Delicious, colorful, and believe it or not, quietly fighting to keep strokes at bay. Now, I'm not exaggerating when I say I eat berries almost every day. I started doing it a few years back, partly because I liked the taste, but also because I stumbled across a study from Harvard that made me stop in my tracks. They followed tens of thousands of people over 2 decades and found that those who regularly ate berries, especially blueberries and strawberries, had a significantly lower risk of stroke. That's not just a feel-good headline. That's long-term, American-based, peer-reviewed science. But what makes berries so powerful? It all comes down to something called flavonoids. These are natural compounds found in plants that do a remarkable job protecting our cells, especially the cells that line our blood vessels. As we age, those blood vessels tend to stiffen or get inflamed, kind of like how old garden hoses crack and leak over time. Flavonoids step in like a maintenance crew, keeping things smooth and flexible. Berries are also rich in antioxidants, which help reduce oxidative stress, a fancy term for the kind of damage that builds up inside us over time, especially from things like poor diet, pollution, or just plain old aging. That damage can trigger inflammation, and chronic inflammation is a major contributor to stroke risk. I'll tell you a quick story. My granddaughter Ellie is 6, and every Sunday we make blueberry pancakes together. She calls them brain cakes. And I love that, because while she's thinking about blueberries making her smart for school, I'm thinking about how they're helping me stay sharp enough to keep up with her. It's our little ritual, and the bonus is, I know I'm giving my body something it genuinely needs. Now here's where berries really shine. They're so easy to add to your day. No cooking required. No chopping. No prep time. I keep a big bag of frozen mixed berries in my freezer, picked at peak ripeness, full of flavor, and half the price of fresh ones. In the morning, I toss a handful into my oatmeal. If it's hot out, I'll blend them into a smoothie with a bit of Greek yogurt and a splash of almond milk. And for dessert, a bowl of strawberries with a drizzle of honey hits the spot every time. Even if you're not a big breakfast person, berries make a great midday snack. Keep a little container in the fridge and grab a handful between lunch and dinner. They satisfy that sweet tooth without the crash that comes from cookies or candy. I know some folks worry about sugar in fruit, but here's the thing. The natural sugars in berries are balanced out by their fiber, which means they don't spike your blood sugar the same way refined sugars do. Plus, they're low in calories and high in nutrients, a win-win by any standard. And don't feel like you need to go on a berry-only diet. Just a few servings a week, we're talking half a cup at a time, can make a real difference. The key is regularity. A little bit often is better than a whole bunch once in a while. Here in the States, we're lucky. Berries are available year-round in most places, whether fresh, frozen, or even dried. Just watch the added sugars on those dried ones. Look for unsweetened if you can. So, if you're looking for a food that feels indulgent but is quietly working hard behind the scenes to lower your stroke risk, reach for berries. They're nature's candy and your brain's best friend. And hey, maybe next Sunday, whip up a batch of brain cakes with someone you love. Trust me, the benefits go far beyond breakfast. Number 3, tomatoes. Now, let's talk about a food that's probably been on your plate more times than you can count, the humble tomato. Sliced on a sandwich, stirred into spaghetti sauce, or straight off the vine in summer. Tomatoes are a staple in so many American kitchens. But what most folks don't realize is that this everyday fruit, yes, it's technically a fruit, might just be one of the most powerful stroke-fighting foods out there. Let me paint you a picture. It's late summer, the sun is warm, and you're out in the garden. You pick a ripe, juicy tomato, still warm from the sun, and bite right into it. That tangy, sweet flavor? That's not just nostalgia, that's nourishment. What makes tomatoes so special is something called lycopene. It's the compound that gives tomatoes their bright red color. But lycopene does a whole lot more than look pretty. It's a potent antioxidant, which means it helps reduce inflammation and keeps your blood vessels healthy. Two things that directly lower your risk of stroke. Here's how it works. When your blood vessels are inflamed or damaged, maybe from high blood pressure, smoking history, or just the wear and tear of life, it becomes easier for clots to form. And those clots are often what trigger a stroke. Lycopene helps calm that inflammation and protects the cells lining your arteries, making it harder for clots to stick around in the first place. Now, here's something surprising. While raw tomatoes are great, cooking them actually makes the lycopene more powerful. That's right, your Sunday spaghetti sauce, your homemade chili, even ketchup, in moderation, can deliver a healthy punch. When you heat tomatoes, the lycopene becomes easier for your body to absorb, so don't feel like you have to stick to raw slices. A warm bowl of tomato soup on a chilly evening might be doing more for your health than you ever imagined. Let me share something from my own kitchen. Every Thursday night, I make a simple tomato and basil pasta. Nothing fancy, just garlic, olive oil, chopped tomatoes, and fresh herbs. I started doing it years ago because it was quick and cheap, but now I think of it as my heart-healthy ritual. It's comforting, familiar, and it genuinely makes me feel good knowing it's helping me stay strong. And if you're watching your sodium, like a lot of folks our age, you can easily find low-salt canned tomatoes or make your own sauces at home with fresh ones. A little planning goes a long way, and your arteries will thank you for it. Now, in case you're wondering if this is just another food fad, let me bring in a little science. A Finnish study published in the journal Neurology found that men with the highest levels of lycopene in their blood had a 55% lower chance of having a stroke compared to those with the lowest levels. That's a big number. And while the study focused on men, the protective benefits apply across the board. So what's the takeaway here? Tomatoes aren't just a salad filler or sandwich topping. They're a powerful, accessible tool in your health toolbox. They're inexpensive, widely available, and incredibly versatile, whether you roast them, blend them, or eat them fresh off the vine. And don't forget cherry tomatoes. Those little red beauties are perfect for snacking. I keep a bowl on the kitchen counter, and every time I pass by, I pop one in my mouth. They're like nature's version of a potato chip, but good for your heart and brain. It's comforting to know that something so familiar, something we've been eating for decades, can still surprise us with how much good it does. So the next time you're at the grocery store or farmer's market, don't just pass by the tomatoes. Grab a few, toss them into your next meal. And remember, you're not just feeding your hunger, you're investing in a longer, stronger life. Now that we've talked about leafy greens, berries, and tomatoes, all wonderfully simple foods with stroke-fighting superpowers, the question becomes, how do we actually make them part of everyday life? Because let's be honest, knowing what's good for us and doing what's good for us are two different things. Especially when routines are already set, appetites aren't quite what they used to be, or cooking for one just doesn't feel as exciting anymore. I hear you. That's why I want to walk you through how to make these foods easy, natural parts of your day, without flipping your world upside down. Let's start with breakfast. It's one of the easiest meals to sneak in something healthy. If you're already having cereal or oatmeal, toss in a handful of berries. frozen or fresh, they both work. No extra cooking, no extra time. I personally love stirring blueberries into warm oatmeal. They get all soft and juicy and almost melt in. If you're more of an eggs and toast person, try sautéing a little spinach in olive oil and folding it into your scrambled eggs. You'd be surprised how quickly you get used to that earthy, rich flavor. It's like your breakfast gets a little smarter and stronger, just like you. Now for lunch, let's keep it simple. A sandwich with some tomato slices and a small spinach salad on the side? Done. Or if you've got leftovers from the night before, heat them up and add a handful of greens just before serving. That way you're getting the benefit of the leafy stuff without changing the flavor too much. And if you're into smoothies, maybe a quick lunch or afternoon snack. Blend up some berries with a banana, a little spinach, you won't even taste it, and milk or yogurt. Boom! That's 3 of our stroke-fighting foods in one glass. Dinner is where you can have fun with flavor. Roasted tomatoes tossed into pasta, collard greens, or kale sautéed with garlic, or even a big hearty soup with chopped spinach stirred in at the end. You don't have to be a gourmet chef. Most of the time, a simple recipe with fresh ingredients tastes better than anything too fancy anyway. And with canned tomatoes, frozen spinach, or pre-washed salad mixes, you can take a lot of the prep work off your plate. I know some folks worry about cost, especially on a fixed income. But the good news is, these foods can actually be some of the most budget-friendly items at the store. A big bunch of kale or spinach often costs less than a bag of chips. Frozen berries last longer and stretch further. And tomatoes? Whether fresh, canned, or in sauce, they're everywhere and affordable. If you buy what's in season or watch for sales, your wallet and your arteries will both be in good shape. Another helpful trick is to plan one meal a day around these ingredients. Just one. Maybe breakfast is your berry time. Maybe lunch is when you always have something with greens. Pick what feels easiest and build from there. Small habits stick better than big overhauls. And if cooking feels like too much some days, that's okay too. Even small changes count. Buy a low-sodium vegetable soup and stir in a few cherry tomatoes or a handful of greens while it's heating. Or sprinkle some berries on a store-bought pudding cup. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Also, think about the social side of food. Maybe invite a neighbor over for lunch. Or make a little extra and drop off a container for a friend. Sharing healthy meals adds a layer of joy and connection. And that's just as important as any nutrient. And one last tip, keep these foods visible. If the spinach is buried in the back of the fridge, chances are it'll wilt before you use it. But if it's right there at eye level, washed and ready, it's more likely to end up on your plate. Same with berries. I keep mine in a clear container on the top shelf, so they're the first thing I see when I open the fridge. At the end of the day, stroke prevention doesn't come from giant gestures. It comes from the little things, the daily habits, the quiet choices, the meals made with care. And the beautiful part? These foods don't just protect you. They taste good. They bring color and comfort to your table. And they remind you, every single day, that you're choosing to stay strong, stay sharp, and keep living well. You know, when we think about growing older, it's easy to get caught up in the things we're told to watch out for. Watch your blood pressure. Watch your sugar. Watch your weight. It can feel like a long list of don'ts. But I think it's time we change the story, because there's so much power in the do's. Do enjoy your meals. Do choose foods that support your body. Do believe that every small step counts. You don't have to overhaul your entire diet or become someone you're not. Just start with a few simple, fresh foods that happen to do a whole lot of good. Leafy greens, sweet berries, bright, juicy tomatoes. They're not just tasty, they're little acts of self-care. Tiny decisions that say, I'm still in charge of how I feel. I still have a say in my health. And isn't that the goal? Not just to live longer, but to live better, with more energy, more clarity, and more moments with the people we love. So here's my gentle nudge to you. Try just one of these foods this week. Add a handful of spinach to your eggs. Pop a few blueberries into your cereal. Slice up a tomato for your sandwich. See how you feel. And if this video spoke to you, if it made you feel a little more hopeful, a little more in control, go ahead and tap that like button, subscribe to Vibrant Elders, and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and I love hearing your stories. Take care of yourself. You've got wisdom, strength, and time ahead. Let's make it vibrant.